Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
Los Angeles, what's happening? Welcome into another episode of the LA Football Podcast here on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com. Yeah, it's your destination for your favorite Los Angeles football teams, Rams, Chargers, Trojans, Bruins. Sprinkle in some high school football because we got the best high school football athletes in America. We're going to be adding more of that as the season goes on. We're also on the Believe Podcast Network. Hope you guys have been well, had a great week thus far. Just getting started, obviously, early week. But there's a lot to be excited about. Training camp starts this week. Ecstatic. I will be there, Chargers and Rams camp. Cannot wait to bring you guys more up close and personal information about what's going on at camp this year. Since we're allowed to be back, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. So, great show today for you, though. Part 2. If you watched last week's episode, if you haven't, you need to go back and watch last week's episode. Jessie Naylor, he's a 49ers beat writer for Sports Illustrated, also runs Last Second Sports YouTube channel. We did a live show talking Rams and Niners, the rivalry, who had a better offseason than this. Got cut a little short by circumstances, man-made circumstances, if you will. We get into that right now in our conversation about what happened, but obviously everyone's okay. No one was hurt, so it wasn't a horrible thing. I had to cut a little short, so we're like, well, let's do part 2 today. So we jump on, finish our conversation, have a blast doing it. Jesse's an awesome dude. I think he's a Tim Tebow lookalike. Let me know what you guys think about that. But yeah, of course, today's show brought to you by betonline.ag. Baseball's back after the All-Star break. Bet on baseball, but really we want to talk about what's bet on for football. So who's going to win this NFC West, right? That's the conversation we have a lot, me and Jesse, is how does the NFC West shake out? Because it's the best division of football, arguably. Some say arguably, I think it is the best division of football. But in my opinion, the Rams are the favorite. What up, Rammies? I always do the wrong hand. But Seattle is always going to be a playoff team with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. The Niners, now they're getting healthy, could be very, very potent. Again, just being in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. And the Cardinals are a wild card. Like on paper, the Cardinals could win the division on paper. I mean, they got so much talent. But Cliff Kingsbury, Vance Joseph, what do they do? But anyway, you can go to betonline.ag. You can pick your winner of the divisions. You can pick who's going to win the Super Bowl. Bet now. I know you got to wait a while, but hey, put $100 down now. Maybe turn that into thousands. Who knows? BetOnline.ag. Tell them the guys at LAFB sent you. You're going to get a 50% welcome bonus, whether you go desktop or mobile. It's BetOnline.ag. Check them out. But with that being said, I don't really have anything else to report on in the personal life. So let's just jump into it. Let's get into this conversation, Jessie Naylor, part 2 of our Rams and Niners conversation. I think as we go through training camp, we'll bring guests on for both the Rams and Chargers. Plus, we got fall camp starting for the Trojans and Bruins. A lot of stuff happening. I want to make sure moving forward in the coming weeks that every show we hit every team. So I don't want fans to be like, oh, I listen to the LA Football Podcast, once a month when they do a show specific to my team. It's just the off season, so it's been kind of sporadic. Everyone's traveling, everyone's different. But once we're back in the season rolling, because we did this last year too, we hit every team, every show. So we get at least 15, 20 minutes for your team. We're going to get the greatest guests, the greatest information, all right to your ears or your eyes if you watch us on YouTube at LAFB Network. Hit that subscribe button if you can. Helps us out exponentially. So with that being said, here's my conversation with the great Jessie Naylor. Hope you guys enjoy. Rams fans, hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Let me know what you think. Should I have trash talked more? It was a very cordial conversation. So let me know, should I have been a little more brutal? Was I too nice? Or is it a, we created a safe zone, safe haven to talk Rams Niners. Let me know what you think, Rams fans, at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB or at LAFB Network. Either one I will respond to. Enjoy this conversation. Jessie Naylor, appreciate you, bro. Here we go. All right, LA, what's up? I am delighted to be joined back for part 2 of our discussion of Rams and Niners. He writes for All 49ers, part of the Sports Illustrated umbrella, and also runs the Last Second Sports YouTube channel. Jessie Naylor, glad to see that things are okay on your end. What's up? Thanks for coming back on, though, so we could finish this great conversation.
Listen, I actually had no issues the other night. I just wanted to make it a 2-parter. I enjoyed being on so much. I'm like, how do I scheme my way back onto the show? And that's the way I did it. So I'm glad it worked.
There we go. Smart man. You maybe not in the game for a long time, but you already know how it works. So, but no, in all reality, obviously, life happens, some things, nothing life threatening or anything, but walk us through before we get into more football talk, what actually happened on Wednesday night as we were live on the air, which is, I thought it was even better. So
I felt so bad. Oh my gosh, I was mortified. Okay. So essentially what happened is my phone's blowing up. I'm like, what is going on? It's my wife calling me over and over and over. I'm like, whatever. Like, we're in the house together. If she really needs me, she'll come in. And so I'm like, let's just finish this show. We're good. So all of a sudden, like to the right of me, I've got double doors, like double glass doors. And so I hear like tapping on the window, and it's my wife. She's like, hitting it with her nails. She's like, I need you right now. So I'm like, all right. So you're in the middle of talking. I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. So I wait till you're finished. I'm like, listen, man, let me check on something. You graciously took it over. So I go outside, and our sprinklers have been going for 7 hours, according to our neighbors. I'm like, all right, this is not a big deal. I'll just shut off the main water. Yeah. I'll come back. I'll finish the show with Ryan, and then I'll figure it out afterwards. So I hit the main water. Sprinklers are still going. Sprinkler system, mind you, is turned off, everything. So you've got your box of solenoids that everything runs through. That's completely flooded out. So I'm in like full panic mode. I don't know what to do. The water bill is going to be through the roof. It's flooding in the backyard. Like, what is going on? So come back in, shut things down with you. And then, of course, cooler heads prevail. And takes me 2 minutes, and I calm down a little bit and realize, all I got to do is flip this valve, and we're good. And, naturally the show's over at this point, and it is what it is, but mostly crisis averted. Water bill will probably suck, but listen, there are worse things in life.
Yeah. Well, glad everything was okay. 2 things on that. One, touche to your wife for not just barging in. Not that I would have cared. She should have just came in and said, hey, like you're not on like, you're not doing ESPN or anything. I need you right now. Yeah. So touche to her. Thank her for me. Again, not that I would have cared, but then also as soon as I leave, as soon as like we shut it down and I wrap up, do my ending and stuff, I go out and I tell my wife, I'm like, oh yeah, you'll never guess what happened. Like, it's the beauty of doing live. And she's like, you would have never answered me. Like I try all the time to get your attention. You just ignore me. I'm like, well, it's part of the game, I guess.
Listen, all you got to do is play back exactly what I said about skipping the phone calls, and then she'll understand that we all do the same thing. But once she's tapping on the door, I got no options.
Exactly. That's when you've averted it the most. So we're glad everything's okay. But anyway, back into Rams Niners talk, which has been a blast so far, Jessie. So I think, again, for you kind of reaching out and setting this up, obviously you have tremendous knowledge of the Niners, and you seem to have good knowledge of the Rams too, which is great. And we kind of ended the conversation as which are potential more additions either of these teams could have. And I think we both agreed both teams could use some more edge depth. So we kind of went into that. So we'll move on past additions now. I kind of put the nail on it anyway, saying the Rams just don't have money. So nothing's really going to happen for the Rams. Rams fans, I've been saying that for all offseason, and other podcasts say otherwise. And, not to do one of these, but so far they haven't added anyone. So that's kind of the way it's going to be. So let's move on to this. So for a successful season for each of these teams, best division in football, NFC West, in my opinion, best division in football. What needs to happen? First, I'll start with you for the Niners for it to be considered a successful season. I know every team is Super Bowl, that's what you want, but that's not always a reality. And sometimes if win the division, if you make the playoffs, win a playoff game, that's considered a success. So in your eyes, what would be considered success for the Niners this year?
I would say getting to round 2, getting to the divisionals. As long as the Niners, first of all, making the playoffs is always good. Coming off of a year where they didn't make the playoffs, had a ton of injuries, I think that would be a success. But I really think they have to win at least one playoff game or get that bye to make it to that second round. Most likely the bye is not going to happen. I mean, only one team gets it now. It's probably going to be Tampa. They've got an easy schedule. You know what I mean? The division's not hard. and they're the defending Super Bowl champs. So I would imagine it's probably going to be them that gets it. So I would say as long as the 49ers can make it to round 2, that should be considered a successful season. Of course, 49er fans think it's Super Bowl or bust, and they are Super Bowl ready. It's a win now mode. I'm a little bit less bullish on that. So yeah, I'll say round 2 of the playoffs, we're good to go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think just being subjective, since I'm not a Niners fan, like anytime you draft a quarterback 3rd overall in the draft, you're not really in win now mode. Like yes, you have, obviously the Niners have pieces to win now, but they have a plan in place for many, many years. Whereas on the other coin, the Rams, I would say they're, in my opinion, by what they've done over the last 4 years in free agency, in trading, and not having no first round picks, it might not even be get to the Super Bowl and bust. It might be win or bust for this Rams team just because of all they've done to build this team, all they gave up to get Goff when they drafted him, and then all they gave up to get rid of Goff and bring in Stafford. They're basically saying, we believe this team won't just make the Super Bowl, but win it this time after being there just 3 years ago, Niners the year right after. So for the Rams, I think for a successful season, they need to win it all. Now, if they make it or they make it to the NFC, divisional round or NFC championship game, obviously there'll be disappointment, but I think you're running it back. You're saying, okay, the model we built is successful. We just need to tweak some things, maybe add a position player here or there, but we don't need to blow anything up because we made a step further, right? Going to the division round last year, now if they go to the NFC championship or the Super Bowl again. But to be a true success for the Rams, just because of what they've done, I think it's win the Super Bowl or bust.
Let me ask you this, because we have a lot of talk in 49er land about if they don't make the playoffs, what happens? And I'm a firm believer that puts Shanahan in the hot seat. He probably won't be fired, but Lynch will probably be let go. That'll be the scapegoat. And then Shanahan has one more year to figure it out. What about McVay, though? And I'm not saying he should be fired, but if they don't make the playoffs after him being so bold and coming out and making it very clear that Goff was the problem, he's the reason that they can't win, and then you go and you trade all that capital to get Stafford, and if you don't make the playoffs, what does that mean for McVay, in your opinion?
It's a great question, and I agree with you too about Shanahan. We can talk more about that in a second too, but it's a good question. I don't think, even if they were to miss the playoffs, I don't think McVay would be necessarily on the quote-unquote hot seat yet, just because 4 years, 4 winning seasons. I know 1 year they didn't make the playoffs, but they still finished 9-7. The Rams historically, after their greatest show on turf years, have been historically bad in the, Jeff Fisher years, Steve Magnolia years, stuff like that. So they haven't seen this kind of success. And I know once you get to that, once you start tasting success, you expect more and more and more. So I don't think 1 year missing the playoffs would put him on the hot seat, but you made a very good point there. The fact of how bullish he was in getting rid of Goff. It was kind of an awkward, severed relationship at the end there. I know they both tried to be respectful, but stuff have come out here and there, and Goff was blindsided by it and all this. And, I've talked to beat reporters for the Rams that basically say, yeah, Les Snead is a GM, but Sean runs the show. Like when things need to happen, Sean calls the owner, not Les. So Sean, and I think it's the same kind with the Niners. That's why they're so similar in coaches, is that everyone's like, oh, well, he's the coach. The GM makes the personnel decisions. Well, yeah, maybe Les makes the final phone call to the other GM, but Sean's the guy behind the scenes saying, this is who I want, go make it happen. And he has the power to do that. So if that fails and say Stafford doesn't, I don't see them missing the playoffs with it, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he wouldn't be on the hot seat, but it would make things really tense in LA, to where now both him and Les Snead, I think, now they're on a leash. Whereas right now there's no leash, right?
For sure.
They've had this much success. Whatever they're doing is working, even though it's crazy and it seems super bizarre and it's no other team's doing it. There's no leash. Whereas if they miss the playoffs this year, all of a sudden there's a leash, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but a leash would be created. So I think that answers your question a little bit, but
it does. I was just curious because, again, a little bit different situations, but to your point, the way that Shanahan runs things in San Francisco, I know that McVay has that same autonomy. And so it was just one of those thoughts that crept in my mind the other day. I'm like, listen, if you went out and you got Stafford and you traded all these assets, something has to happen. There has to be some sort of repercussion. Like, people at least got to start talking about it. So,
yeah. And so while we're on that topic, let me ask you about Shanahan. I'm people on Twitter probably don't think I am. I actually am a big Shanahan guy. I think he's a phenomenal offensive mind. good guy. I think he's an overall good head coach. But in my opinion, his one Super Bowl, which obviously, albeit a great season they had, has somehow, for some reason, in a lot of circles, have made him seem as this elite coach, which in my opinion, 3 losing seasons to 1 good one doesn't make you elite. I still think he's good. He shouldn't be on the hot seat right now. So I think people take comments on Twitter, especially, and blow them out of proportion.
For sure.
You can say someone's overrated, and it doesn't mean you think they're bad. They just shouldn't be considered elite. Yes. So what's your opinion on Shanahan so far? I guess I'll just leave it. The very broad question for you, but I'll let you talk.
Yeah. Well, listen, first of all, I'm with you on the overrated and not being good thing. So one of the things that always got me in hot water is I always said that John Elway is the most overrated quarterback of all time. People are like, oh, how could you say such a thing? And I'm like, listen, at that time, before Brady was the clear number 1 guy of all time, people thought Elway was better than Montana. I'm like, no, that is not a thing. Okay, there you go. So for me, I'm looking at it going, this guy had a career completion percentage of like 56.9. He's the most overrated quarterback of all time, but he's still top 7, right? Like those things both can be true. And totally. I agree. Listen, if Shanahan doesn't have that last name, he's already on the hot seat. You cannot have 3 losing seasons in 4 years, even if the 1 year is making the Super Bowl, and expect to not be on the hot seat in today's NFL. Jed York has shown in the past that he fires people on a whim. He does not care. He will pay out people. He's a questionable owner, I'll say that, but he has a very short leash on people. But Shanahan, for whatever reason, again, probably because of his last name, just has this stigma about him that he is such a genius and he can do no wrong. And anytime something bad happens in the organization, he gets zero blame from the fan base. Fan base like, listen, the injuries are not his fault. Who cares if 36 injuries have happened in 4 years during practice? That's not on him. No, never mind the fact that he's the one that drafted and brought in injury-prone players and old players. That's not his fault. That's John Lynch. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if they have another losing season, he absolutely needs to be on the hot seat. Like I said, they'll probably use John Lynch as the scapegoat, and he'll get 1 more year after that because he's an offensive genius and he's got the young quarterback and all those things. But that last name is really saving his bacon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's good to hear you say that, because that's kind of been my viewpoint is the guy's not a bad coach by any means. But no, I just don't see this. Like, I saw literally a graph, or whatever you call it, table, a graphic or whatever. I think it was like 4 days ago, and it was like coaching rankings, and there was 5 elite coaches, and he was one of them, and John Harbaugh wasn't. And I'm like, John Harbaugh has as many losing seasons as Kyle Shanahan has as many winning seasons. Right. So things like that. And then I've used this comparison before. I 100% think Kyle Shanahan's a better coach, so that's where it gets out of context. But just on paper, a guy like Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl, has more wins than Kyle Shanahan, and he's currently unemployed, and Shanahan's considered elite. So I've always just found it interesting, the conversation around Kyle. And yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that his dad was Mike Shanahan, and you know, he's constructed some great offenses, and, you know, had the Falcons offense, and, you know, made Matt Ryan an MVP, and did some things even in Cleveland when they were a dumpster fire with their offense through. So guy has a good resume, great coach. But yeah, I've always been interested by the stigma that he's this elite guy in these 4 years, when I don't think we've really seen it. Even the year they went, I think you would agree that yes, they did some good things on offense. I think their running game was fantastic, but I mean, the defense is why they went to the Super Bowl that year, and they stayed healthy.
Let me do you one better. So Chip Kelly, how does everybody view Chip Kelly?
Well, I mean, yeah, the viewpoint is awful, of course, but
extremely terrible, right? He got ran out of Philly, got to San Francisco, was there for a year, went like 2-14, got ran out of San Francisco, and now, you know, he's back in college doing whatever.
Yeah.
His record at this point in his career is the exact same as Shanahan's at this point in his head coaching career. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what you want to say, yes, obviously the team is being built and it can be a winner. I get the potential, but regardless of how they've made it happen, where they are at this point in their careers, the exact same record.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that about Chip. Yeah, that's interesting. So, well, that's a good segue then, that we can compare these two to the entire division, because, I mean, Pete Carroll, I think, is going to probably, I mean, he's on the cusp of being a Hall of Fame, I think, coach since his second stint in the NFL at Seattle. Then you have, obviously, I think we both agree who's probably the bottom feeder. But I'll let you start. How would you rank the 4 NFC West coaches so far, or at least going into 2021?
Yeah, I would say, listen, I mean,
let's do that actually, not to cut you off. Let's just
go ahead.
Going into 2021, because I think if you just compare careers, you have to have Pete Carroll 1. But if we're saying who's the best coach right now, we'll do it that way. Make it a little more.
I'm still going to go with Pete Carroll 1, just because he's proven it, right? They make the playoffs every single year. There's no reason to not put Pete Carroll number 1. I like McVay. Obviously, I like Shanahan, but Pete Carroll is proven. And again, Harbaugh's a guy that doesn't get the credit, and probably because he's not calling the offensive or defensive plays. He has a true offensive coordinator. He has a true defensive coordinator. He was a special teams guy.
Yeah.
But as a head coach, there's so much that goes into it. There's being there for your players, creating a family atmosphere, also being stern, managing a game, knowing when to push on players and knowing when to pull back. There's so much that goes into being a leader and a head coach that people don't get credit for. And you have someone like a Shanahan who is an amazing schemer. I mean, I put him up there with probably Andy Reid. Sean Payton is the best X's and O's play callers, play designers in the NFL. But there's so much more to that than, when you're a head coach. When you're an offensive coordinator, that's one thing. So that being said, Pete Carroll, he knows how to get the best out of his players. He's done it for way too long to not give him credit. He's number 1. Number 4 is clearly Cliff Kingsbury. That guy is a dumpster fire. And, he says that this is the year that we'll finally see his offense in full effect. We'll see about that. Yeah. But it comes down to Shanahan and it comes down to McVay for that number 2 spot. I don't know. I mean, flip a coin. To me, it's very even. I think that, top to bottom, I would probably take McVay most weeks. But for some reason, when McVay and Shanahan play, Shanahan just has his number. And, I think a lot of that is there's a little bit of a big brother thing going on. They obviously came up together, but Shanahan is the elder statesman, right? And I think that McVay learned a lot from Shanahan and just that whole coaching tree. And so I think there's a little bit of that. He looks up to Shanahan, but he also wants to beat him, Totally. And so I'm going to go slight edge Shanahan only for that reason, because head to head, I believe that Shanahan has his number. But again, if I'm going the other 15 games of the season, I'm probably taking McVay. So again, slight Shanahan, but you can convince me either way.
Yeah, it's a great debate. And I think 1 and 4, I definitely agree with you. Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, we'll see if he has a job at the end of this season, because that roster in Arizona is so good on paper. Like,
it's now or never.
And it kind of sucks for them considering the rest of the division is so good. But with the extra playoff team, there's no reason the Cardinals should not make the playoffs. If they don't, it's either they get injury ridden or it's because Cliff Kingsbury is their head coach. Agree with you, Pete Carroll. I think I've always been a huge Pete Carroll guy, obviously being a USC guy also, so seeing what he did down here in Los Angeles with the Trojans. But what he does for that team, whenever I feel like there's so, and part of this is Russell Wilson, obviously, too, or a lot of it is Russell Wilson. But every year I feel like every year I'm like, okay, Seattle's going to be bottom of the division or not make the playoffs, or they're going to be contending for a top 5 pick. And yet they make the playoffs every year. They don't do anything in free agency. They don't shore up the offensive line. But I think the biggest thing in this offseason, I think, was so exemplified by this is you get back in whatever it was before the draft, after the draft. It's been such a long offseason, I can't remember. But Russ, for the first time ever, something comes out of him, quote unquote, like complaining about the offensive line. I talked about it many times. I think the media blew it way out of proportion, but something was said. And all of a sudden there's all these trade rumors and this, and he wants out, and these are the teams he wants, and all this, and yada, yada, yada. But the organization stayed pretty steadfast. Pete Carroll stayed steadfast. I never really thought there was going to be an issue, and there isn't. Here we go in the training camp. They both have said, yeah, we're all good. Russ has said him and John Snyder are good, but the whole thing, the common denominator there is Pete Carroll. Now he is a well-oiled machine with his team. His players love him, and I knew nothing was going to happen as long as Pete Carroll was the coach. If once he retires, then it's a whole different story. But as long as he was the coach, they were going to be fine, and Russ was going to be the quarterback there. So I think that, to me, is why also what makes him such a great coach and the number one guy is for those abilities, not even when the season's going, just to keep cooler heads and keep the roster intact. Now, when it comes to Shanahan McVay, I agree with you. It's very close. Call it homerism. So maybe you went with him because Niners, I'll go with McVay because of the Rams. Sure. I just think the fact that McVay's had 4 winning seasons, 0 losing seasons. And I know everyone brings up the head-to-head, which is absolutely a point to bring up. But overall, not a single losing season. He's on his now 3rd defensive coordinator in just 4 years. And, after bringing in a guy relatively unknown in Brandon Staley last year, McVay found him, hired him, created the number 1 defense in the NFL with him, and now got that guy to be hired to a head coaching job. Every year, it seems like someone on this Rams organization, and a little bit too to the Niners as well, especially this last offseason, but every year the Rams coaching staff just gets plucked with, coaches being taken, whether it's a upgrade or whether it's a head coach, which I think plays pivotal into what Sean McVay is and who he is and what he does. So offensive mind-wise, it's very, very close. Maybe even give the edge to Kyle Shanahan. But just what we've seen happen in 4 years, I have to give the edge to McVay. Even though both have been to the Super Bowl and lost, but just the overall body of work in those 4 seasons, I'll give the edge to McVay at 2. So, but
yeah, that's
good 3
listen,
guys.
That's totally fair. Like I said, I can be swayed either way. I really wish the 49ers had an opportunity to be on Hard Knocks because we got to see what McVay was made of, right? Last year. And this is why it's hard to go against him because last year you had all the racial tension, you had COVID, you had all these things stacked against you. And the way that he just handled all of it was such grace, kept the team charged up, ready to go. And I mean, he just did such a phenomenal job and you got to see it front and center. So that to me was really what sold me on McVay was he's able to keep all this together. And that team did not lose focus. He knew exactly, again, when to not have practice, when to have practice, when to practice hard, when to pull back. So, those are things that just come natural as a leader. And he has all of those things. So,
yeah, it's kind of fun, Jesse, to see in these last 3 to 4 to 5 years, this like group of kids that came up in the NFL. Now they're literally just taking it over with McVay, Shanahan, Zach Taylor, I guess not really Brandon Staley, even though he's on his staff, but all these guys, Matt LaFleur, and now they're all just kind of running the NFL. It's the new guard, if you will. I know that happens kind of every, 20 years or so, and we're witnessing it. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of John Grudens running around. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's another dumpster fire, speaking of, but hey, we'll move on. So, I know you guys hate ads. Everyone does, but don't skip forward. Hold on one second, real quickly, because you're going to want to hear this. The Olympics, baseball, major championships, concerts, everyone's all in on this summer. But you know what isn't? A wild and hairy bush. Thing of the past. Should be anyway. Tame your pubes with help from our friends at Manscaped. I'm actually wearing the shirt. Wasn't even planning on it, but it's a very comfortable shirt. They are the leaders in below the waist grooming. Their 4th generation performance package includes the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. If an athlete treats their body like royalty, as they do, why not treat your pubes like Olympic gold? Fellas, do right by your balls and join the 2 million men worldwide, not just stateside, worldwide, who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com with my code LAFB20. The brand new Lawnmower 4.0, I have it. It's fantastic. It's here to take the podium. This 4th generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. No one wants to talk about it, but we've all been there. Nicks, cuts, scrapes, gashes, whatever you want to call them. We've all had that happen. Not with Manscaped. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multi-function on and off switch, which can engage a travel lock. So don't worry when you're traveling and your razor's not just going to turn on randomly if it bumps something. And it gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight. This thing is beaming on and off when needed for more precise shave. Did I mention this trimmer is waterproof? Yeah, do it in the shower. No mess. Michael Phelps drooling just thinking of the possibilities. So once again, you can get 20% off and free worldwide shipping when you use the code LAFB20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code LAFB20 at manscaped.com. Achieve pubic glory this year with Manscaped. Now back to the conversation. So how do you think the division plays out? It's going to be tough, man. I mean, it's because the Niners, to me, the Niners are the wild card. I think Arizona is a wild card in the sense because, like I said, I think on paper they're so good, but I just think coaching deficiencies are going to hold them back. The Niners are, if healthy, I mean, they were in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. They arguably upgraded at quarterback position. There, obviously, we talked last episode about losing Robert Saleh, how much of an impact that has, but overall, keeping the core together. And then you have the Rams adding a quarterback that's better than Goff. You have the Seahawks are still Seahawks. How does it play out?
Well, again, as much as I would love to say that Russell Wilson and that Seahawks team, they're down, they're the last place team in the division, I just can't do it. You know, if you look at the roster, they really probably do have the worst roster, but Russell Wilson he's a magician. He is. So I think the division can play out in multiple different ways. First of all, let me be clear about this. I'm going to be bold and say that all 4 teams make the playoffs.
I like it.
So we're going to have a divisional winner from each division, and then 4 NFC West teams are going to the playoffs. That's how it's going to play out in the NFC. So I'm also doing that because I'm going to hedge my bet a little bit. I'm on an LA network, and I don't think you're going to like, or fans are not going to like what I'm about to say. But all right, so if Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback, and I don't believe he will be, but if Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback, that team finishes last in the division. And I think that the 49ers have the best roster, top to bottom. You add in depth, everything. I think the roster's the best. But Jimmy Garoppolo is so far behind the rest of those quarterbacks that it's impossible for them to make it up. Okay. So if he's the starter, they finish last in the division. Now, if Lance starts, I still think that they have the worst quarterback in the division because Lance is a rookie. No matter how good I think he's going to eventually be, right now he is not better than Murray. He's not better than Wilson, and he's not better than Stafford. But the difference between what I think he brings with that arm strength and the mobility, I think that's enough for them to go. And again, from worst to first, I'm talking a game and a half separation. Like, it's not going to be a lot. I think that's enough for them to win the division. So that's how big of a difference that I think it is with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. So 2 different scenarios. All right. As much as I hate Cliff Kingsbury, and I think he's absolutely atrocious, I think that Cardinals team is so prime. And Kyler Murray, people are very back and forth on Kyler Murray. You either love Kyler or you hate him. I'm in the Kyler Murray camp. See this guy twice a year. He's an absolute monster. He's impossible to get a hold of. He is extremely good, in my opinion. I think he's very efficient, even though he likes to run around and do some crazy things. And if Cliff Kingsbury can do anything other than call 4 curl routes at the same time, every single play, then that offense can be very explosive. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals to finish 2. Okay. Again, I can't pick the Seahawks to finish worse, so I'm going to put them at 3, and I'm going to put the Rams at 4. Now, a lot of people are on me about this because the Rams are extremely talented, and again, Stafford is a major upgrade. But I'm looking at this as a 17-game season, and every team is going to battle injuries. And we talked about it in episode 1 that the Rams lost a ton of depth, like a ton of depth on that defense. And listen, you can't predict injuries. I get that. But if a Ramsey goes down for 2 or 3 games or a Donald goes down for 2 or 3 games, I don't see how they win. And in a 17-game season, it's going to be a war of attrition, and you're going to lose pieces at some point. The Rams have been very fortunate. They've been very healthy. At some point, that injury bug will bite them. And I'm banking on a couple big guys not losing the season or anything like that, but they will miss games. And when they do, how do they recover because they don't have the depth? And that's the reason that I think there's going to be that difference. Again, they make the playoffs, but I do think they finish last in the division.
Okay. Yeah. Love the arguments. Love the reasoning. I don't necessarily agree 100%, but that's great. That's good. I agree with you that I do think this division can send all 4 for sure. I'll start at the top. So let me explain it because I don't want to just sound like a homer. But I think the Rams will finish first. And I agree with you, though. It's going to be like between a game or 2 games from first to last of the division. I think it's going to be extremely close. Here's why I think they're going to finish first. And I'm not diminishing your point, but I can't predict a team based on assuming they're going to have injuries. Yes, that does happen. Obviously, you guys know it very well in Ninerland. That does happen from one year to another. And there's a very big possibility that could happen. But based in the Sean McVay era, based on what he does in the offseason, they have a very light offseason program compared to other teams. The starters do not play at all in preseason. They have very light practices during the week. We had Andrew Whitworth on, and he's like, I've loved being in LA. Like, I never practice at all. Like, I literally just do walkthroughs and show up on game day. So part of it is actual coaching and mentality of why they've been able to stay healthy. So I still think that, yes, I agree with you. There will be some stuff that happens, but I think I can't predict based on assuming they're going to have injuries. I think they stay relatively healthy just because that's been their history. I am also higher than most on what they drafted on depth based on some of the guys they lost. They drafted a guy, Robert Rochelle, I know out of a small school, but super talented, freak athlete. Not saying he can be Jalen Ramsey, but he's a guy that, if needed to, could maybe spell a couple games, come in there if injuries did happen. They added Bobby Brown on the defensive line. They're going to mold into being an Aaron Donald. I talked to, Coach Henderson, the defensive line coach, and he just is in love with this kid. And he's not saying he's going to be Aaron Donald, because there's never going to be, I don't think, an Aaron Donald again, but he has the size, the speed, and the tendencies. So they did some things that it's not getting talked about nationally to add to that depth. Now here's the main reason I think they finished first is, since McVay's been in LA, they're 8-0 against the Cardinals. So they haven't lost a single game to the Cardinals. I know there's been 2 different coaching regimes there, or 3 actually, because they had the one coach, Wilkes, was only there for 1 season. But I think they continue that trend. He has his number, even if they split. Seahawks, it's been pretty split evenly. So there's no reason that would change. At some point, the Niners series, you would think it has to. I'm not even saying they sweep them, but at least be a split. I think with the upgrade at quarterback, with the unknown at quarterback for the Niners, I would think the Rams can at least split. And then outside of the division, it's pretty relative because all the teams play the same. So for those reasons why I like the Rams, just with the upgrade at quarterback, with how they've been able to stay healthy in the history of the McVay era, and some pieces they did add in depth at the draft and not a lot of people talking about, I think they do finish first. Second is hard because if healthy, I think the Niners. I agree with you. And if Trey Lance is the quarterback we think he can be. First of all, I want to say I love that you said you have Trey Lance last in the division because he's a rookie. I can't stand seeing these quarterback rankings come out when people have rookie quarterbacks over established guys. Like, yes, we're projecting they'll probably be better, but they've never played a game yet. Let's not put them above guys that have played 5 years and won a playoff game. You just can't do it. I can't do it. So I love that you said that at least. But the ability Trey Lance has, what he did in college, obviously why the Niners drafted him. If he's able to do that, that team's going to be explosive on offense. So I'm going to put them 2 based on getting all the guys back, based on Trey Lance starting like you believe. And then, I'll go Seahawks 3 just because Russell Wilson, they're not going to miss the playoffs, even though they finished 3rd. And then, Cardinals 4. But the Cardinals it's crazy. Who knows what they could do. But I just think 4 because of the coaching deficiencies.
I will say this. So as much as I just said, I think the Rams finish last in the division. If all 4 teams make the playoffs, like I'm saying that they will, I believe, again, assuming health, everybody's all in. I think the Rams will be the scariest team in the NFC West because they, at that point, they will have had a full season with Stafford at the helm. They'll have things completely figured out. And then, of course, you've got Donald, Ramsey, Whitworth. That receiving core is an absolute nightmare. So I think that going into the playoffs, they, regardless of where they finish, would be the scariest team and probably the team that likely makes it the furthest out of the West, as long as they don't have to run into Tampa before, it gets too far into it. So that's the way that I would actually lay that out once they got to the playoffs. So as much as I say finish 4th in the regular season, as soon as they get to the playoffs, that flip-flops. They're first now. They're the best team going into the playoffs would be my thought on that.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating for sure. And we're a week away, dude. A week away from training camp.
I know.
Absolutely can't wait. I'll be there. Do you make your trip out to Santa Clara often, or I know you're?
No, I don't. I mean, it's full across. It's all the way across the United States, and usually if I'm going back to the West Coast, I'm going back to Oregon to visit family. So Oddly enough, I'm going to be in California this next week, but total vacation. I'll be in Shasta. We're getting a houseboat. So
Nice,
that's what I'll be doing. But no, I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, if you happen to make it to LA for the Rams Niners game, make sure to hit me up. Love to grab a beer.
Yeah.
On me, we'll get you a Brewery X beer, one of our sponsors, fantastic local here in LA. Last thing before I let you go, and I don't want to harp too much on it because I've made a point when I do this show, I don't like diving into two guys' personal life and stuff, but
Yeah.
I at least want to bring it up because it is in the news and he's been such an integral part to in this division, both the Seahawks and obviously the Niners. Obviously, I'm talking about the Richard Sherman news, and we just pray and hope all is best for him. But just briefly, because I mean, you obviously followed him a lot closer because he was on your team. What do you make of the situation without laying out any of the logistics?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just ultimately, man to man, person to person, it's a sad situation. And what hurts me the most is what I was hoping when it first came out is that it was just, hey, he had one too many pops. He doesn't know how to handle his liquor. And he was a little off for a night. Right.
Yeah.
And especially when you heard the suicidal things and whatnot. But then to hear that this is an ongoing thing and he's really been dealing with some serious demons, that's what hurts me the most. And I really genuinely pray that he gets the help that he needs. Who knows what's going on? Maybe he just knows that his football career is over. He doesn't know how to handle that. I don't know. But, Richard Sherman, you and your family, I know that, Ryan, you would echo these sentiments. We're definitely rooting for you, man. So, just as a person, we hope that you pull through and come out of this better. And, when you have dark times like this, usually doors tend to open as long as you can keep a positive mindset. And, maybe you can change many other people's lives just by being honest with this situation for what it is. And you can talk about it and laugh about it one day. And like I said, turn some other lives around. So that's what I hope for from Richard Sherman.
Yeah, absolutely. Great human being. Obviously what he does in the community is fantastic. And it does so much. So it's so sad to see. Whatever you think about him on the field, obviously has been a rival for us, but as just a human being and a person on this earth, he's done great things. And I've talked a lot. Obviously, he's not with me right now, but my co-host Frostee Rucker, who played 13 years in the NFL, and that mindset when football's over, it's a real mental drain of like, what am I going to do now? And Richard Sherman didn't choose that. Like he went from just 2 years. I know last year was kind of a down year for him, but just 2 years, he was still considered a top 10, top 7 cornerback in the NFL. And all of a sudden free agency goes by, he doesn't get picked up. I think he would have been picked up in training camp. Now, I don't know, but how much of that I think plays into just the mental, like you're on top of the world, one of the best players in the game, and all of a sudden no one wants you. I mean, people don't understand. That's a big thing on your mentality when you're, plus you play a game where you have to have this mindset where it's like dog eat dog, and all of a sudden no one wants you. So, thoughts and prayers for Richard. I think he's gonna be fine. I mean, out of all the situation, no one was hurt, at least, thank God. So things it doesn't look great, it doesn't sound great, which that's a whole different story about that stuff getting released. But anyway, just want to get your thoughts. But I rooting for the guy, and I personally, just because of what he's done in the past, I think he'll be stronger for this, and hopefully his family and everyone just rallies around him. And I just want to see fans not. I hate seeing all the fans saying bad stuff.
I hate it, man. It's so much more than football, and you briefly touched on it, but just I hate that everything is coming out. Videos, phone calls. It's too much. Like I get it; these guys are in the public eye, but it's too much. We don't need to see that. I'm not better for seeing it. Like I would prefer not to. So it's there. Obviously, you're going to put eyes on it, but it's not something that I think should have come out to the public, and it's unfortunate.
Last thing on it, but that's something that drives me crazy because that's someone that I don't really consider myself a journalist, podcaster, but I do write and stuff like that. But I mean, we do some journalism, and a lot of in that situation, it's like, well, I'm a reporter. It's my job to find the news. And I'm like, well, that's not, like you said, it's not news. It's benefit. Like journalists are supposed to, sports journalists in particular, it's like, okay, you're reporting on teams, the games, maybe sharing life stories, like their backgrounds, what they went through to get to where they are. You don't need to share stuff that's going to break someone down that has zero beneficial to society whatsoever. It's just so you can get clicks to your website or listens on your radio segment. So that always drives me crazy.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So, all right, man, you're the man. Last thing before I let you go, just got to ask, who takes the season series? Is the Niners going 2-0 again? Are they splitting? Does McVay finally get the upper hand and take 2 against Shanahan? I love this rivalry. I love the coaching rivalry. I love that they both wanted Stafford and the Rams won out on it. I'm new. I shouldn't say new, but I'm kind of new. 3 years in now to covering the Rams. So now I'm fully getting more indoctrinated into the Rams-Niners rivalry. And I think it's become much more heated up these last 2 or 3 years. And it's a blast. Every week it's Ram-Niners week. It's like my Twitter feed just explodes and I freaking love it. So how do you see the series going?
I'll go with the split. It's going to be tough, really, for the Rams, just because it's going to be like 2 home games for the 49ers. Fans are back into it. 49er fans travel well. I mean, when you have a fan base that can go to a Saints game or a Seahawks game or a Cowboy game and turn it into a home game, basically, that's wild. So you know that it's basically going to be like 2 road games for the Rams. That being said, Stafford definitely is a major upgrade. I think they've definitely got some swag over there, and this one should be a split.
Yeah, I agree. I think a split. I think there's no way McVay loses 2 in this.
No.
And I think, obviously, some of that was on Goff last year, and some of that I've talked a ton on my podcast. As much as I love McVay, as much as I think he's the second best coach in the division, there's a lot of games where he overcoaches, just like tries to get too cute almost, and just do what's working. And I think he'll learn from that and actually do that in this season. So,
well, I'll also say I think Saleh had his number. Saleh figured him out, and he knew it. He had a game plan that was very interesting, and I haven't seen a lot of teams do this, but he looked at it and said, if we take away Cooper Kupp, we take away the Rams offense. Yeah. And he did whatever he could to take Cooper Kupp out of those games, and it worked for him very, very well. So, they may still try to do those things, but they're not going to do it at the rate that Saleh was doing it. So I think that's where we talked about the defensive coordinators and does it make a difference? This is a series where it definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, and adding Deshaun Jackson and Tutu Atwell to
he got some speed.
Yeah, the speed. So, well, my man, Jessie Naylor, seriously, dude, appreciate you. This has been so much fun. We'll definitely, I'm sure we'll connect again once these teams play in the in the actual season. But tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find all your great work, and how to follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter at JNay_LSS. You can find my YouTube channel, Last Second Sports. And you can also find me writing for all 49ers Sports Illustrated. Any one of them would be great. And yes, I think at the very least, let's do game previews anytime the Rams and the 49ers play, whether it's your platform, mine, doesn't really matter. Let's do some game previews and just get the fan bases together. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Crack some cold ones, talk some smack. All those listening, give Jessie a follow. I know you're not Niners fans, but hey, it's fun for banter. It's fun we're finally having football back and we can talk about it. So give him a follow that. So dude, thanks so much. Glad your house isn't flooded, and enjoy the rest, enjoy your weekend, and hopefully we'll talk soon. All right.
All right, man.
All right. Huge thanks to Jessie Naylor. Awesome dude. Appreciate him. It's fun. Obviously we want to talk, our teams, and we want to have, like minds, but it's good to get across the aisle, right? Our politicians can't do it. They're a mess when it comes to talking across the aisle, but in sports, we should be better at it. We can have genuine, good conversations across the aisle, across rivalries. So that was fun with Jessie. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Some good, I think, takes on both sides. I know it seemed like we kind of agreed on a lot of things, which maybe I wasn't expecting. But I think, sometimes when you really break down football, you can see truths, right? And you can take fanhead aside and just see what the truth is. And so I think that's why we saw that agreement. So can't wait to, invite him down here. Hopefully all of you will join us, crack open a ice cold Brewery X. Speaking of which, Brewery X, before we log off here, before I sign off, give a shout out to Brewery X. Friday, the 23rd of July. So when you're listening to this show, depending what day it is, it's a few days away. This week, whenever you're listening, it's this week, Friday this week. Petros and Money, the voice of your Los Angeles Chargers, but the Petros and Money show on AM 570, will be recording live at Brewery X in Anaheim, the La Palma Beer Trail. Brewery X partners with LAFB. We're going to be recording there a bunch too, but hey, we'll take a bow out in the beginning for Petrus and Money to do their thing. But coming out, a bunch of us guys from LAFB are going to be there, hanging out. You can meet the crew at Brewery X. I know we've been praising for a while. Awesome guys, awesome beer, awesome food, awesome atmosphere. Petrus and Money. Oh, and the LA Football Network is going to be represented. You can come hang out with us and just talk some balls. So Friday, July 23rd, Brewery X. Hit us up beforehand if you want to. But yeah, we'll be there with a little crew hanging out, having some beers, having a good time. Would love to meet all of you that want to come out. So hopefully we will see you then. But thank you so much for listening to the LA Football Podcast. Big thanks to Manscaped. Big thanks to BetOnline. Big thanks to Brewery X for your support and sponsorship. But most importantly, thank you to you, the listeners, whether you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whether you subscribe on YouTube, whether you're watching right now on YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate you all. Be healthy, be safe. I know we're in a crazy world where things are this roller coaster up and down. Keep a positive mindset, stay happy, stay healthy, help one another out. Ask yourself, what can I do today to help someone that I didn't do yesterday? That's kind of the mindset I try to live by. But hopefully we see you guys on Friday or in the future. And a lot of big things planned at the LA Football Network. I have some big announcements coming here in the coming weeks. Super pumped. Thank you all. Have a great night. Talk to you guys soon.